Hello, Facebook and YouTube. What is happening? Gonzalo here. Thursday night Course in Miracles at the St. Petersburg, Florida, USA Temple of the Living God. Thursday night Course in Miracles with Gonzalo. Welcome, 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 welcome. Wonderful, wonderful sharing tonight. What was the summary here tonight? Well, we talked a lot as far as within the Course in Miracles community. There tends to be a big aversion to dealing with guilt and dealing with deep-seated guilt. There tends to be a real aversion to dealing with issues that make us very uncomfortable, that are rooted in guilt. And that's precisely how the ego would have it. When the ego belief system, which we've so firmly invested in, sinks its claws in and its talons in so deeply, it doesn't want us to look at those deep-seated areas which we've hidden carefully away. We talked a lot about, we have spoken a lot about sex being one of them, and our sexual habits and our sexual past, lies that we've told, addictions that we've had. We've talked a lot about that. Generally, those are areas where a lot of even course students don't really want to look at because they're too hard to, they're too uncomfortable. Therefore, we kind of dance around them and slap a course quote or a meditation and a prayer on, but it doesn't really get to the bottom of confronting those things with the light of Holy Spirit and really standing with the discomfort and asking Holy Spirit to really help us expose the grip and the prison that those things that the ego has orchestrated as those stories that we're afraid of have over us, and the control that those things have over us requires a deep, deep place of honesty. Further, we spoke about using the example of the book The Shack, which I'm reading very slowly. I'm getting near the end, but wonderful. One of the best commentaries that I've seen on what the Course in Miracles Jesus calls the separation. The Shack speaks about how we as individual identities, as people identities, chose what we call independence and freedom on our own, of wanting to do it ourselves, wanting to be our own person, wanting to live life our way as a person, wanting to have our own stuff and identify our personal value with the accomplishments that we have, with the things that, even with the relationships that we have. Our personal value becomes these firm investments in our things of the world. Our accumulation of stuff, of goals, of accomplishments, of people around us, of relationships become our identity. And that's what the Shack calls our independent minded, what we call our freedom loving self, really becomes a prison of investment in things that cannot give us complete fulfillment. They become things that keep us busy. Our investments in the world, when I mean investments, it could be emotional, financial, our personal, our family investments, how much we identify our innate value in these things of the world, some of which we call so virtuous because they're dressed up very nicely in the world, keep us distracted away from our perfect light. And again, this is where the practice of the Course gets deep. They're not talking about abandoning our families and quitting our job tomorrow and running away to the mountains. They're not talking about what we're doing. They're talking about, where is our faith invested? Where is our identity invested? Is it invested in the stuff that I accumulate? Is it invested in the people around me as my value? Is it invested in my family as my value? Is it invested in how people like me, my image, my approval seeking? Where is my faith invested as my innate identity? Is it invested in this stuff in the world, that some of the things that we think are so good and so worthwhile, as the ego would have us believe, in the window dressing that the world offers us with all these choices? Or is it invested only in the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, the Christ in us, the love of God, the light of God, you want to say? Is it invested there? We cannot be invested in one or the other at the same time. We will either be invested in our ego identity as a person, as a personality, as the Shaq would say, as a independent, free person in the world, free in big quotes, because we have a lot of choices in the world, but we don't have freedom in this world. Don't be fooled. We can wave our flag and wave our banner of independence, but we're not free. If we're afraid of anything, whether it's a bad guy, whether it's the person from the other political party, whether it's a terrorist, whether it's me losing my material junk and my material wealth, whether it's people not liking me, whether it's people not accepting me, whether it's me not feeling accepted in the world, whether it's me feeling like I'm unaccomplished, if we're afraid of anything, if we feel unworthy, we feel guilty, we feel shameful of anything in the past, we are not free. Freedom, true freedom, and fear and guilt, which is the same string of fear, freedom and fear do not coexist. Freedom and fear do not coexist. True freedom does not come by waving a flag and saying that you love the Constitution and saying that you got to have your guns in order to feel like you're free and saying that other people need to go to hell if they express their freedom of expression, which conflicts with your freedom of expression. Guess what, dude? You're not free if you feel that you have to go out in the world and assert your identity somehow over others, at the expense of others, at the expense and attacking others. And we're not free if we're practicing that type of freedom. That's simply a convenient way that the ego covers over our God-given light, so we never get to it, and we just stay running around in circles, calling ourselves righteous and putting others down and making ourselves feel superior. But really, it's just the ego way of layering over with hidden guilt our God-given truth, which we don't want to see because we're so fixated on the differences in the world that the ego would have us believe that this is actually us. So I really appreciated the talk tonight, the level of openness. Mentioned also the ladies who are doing the forum on racism in the Course in Miracles community. Corinne Zipko, Pastor Yolanda Freedom, and Emily Bennington. I hope I got the names right. So they did a series, I believe they're still on the series, and I just watched some of the 7th one where they talk again about the Course in Miracles community's tendency to avoid talking about racism at depth because it makes us uncomfortable. And again, not to go too deep into their talk, because you can look at that on YouTube and check it out. But the bigger point of teaching for me was that just how much of an aversion us Course in Miracles students who call ourselves that, just how much avoidance we have around topics that make us uncomfortable and get to that guilt. Racism is one that makes us uncomfortable sharing about. A lot of times sharing about with people of different races, it makes us uncomfortable because, again, it gets to that, it starts to poke at that guilt that covers over our God-given perfection. And so, but we have to go there and follow that discomfort if we're going to unleash the control and the prison and the chains that guilt has over us. We have to go into those areas, whether it's racism or whether it's our sexual habits or our past decisions that we've made that we're ashamed of and we feel really guilty of, whether it's our habits and addictions that we want to cover over and haven't come to a place of peaceful acknowledgement of, not condemning, but peaceful acknowledgement that things have control over me. And I need to really expose this to the Holy Spirit's light, to really, really, really see it for what it is, which is another distraction, cover-up tactic, distraction tactic of the ego to cover over my God-given light so I stay distracted. Those things have to be exposed. And when I say exposed, we're talking about exposed to the light of the Holy Spirit. Really, the openness really comes with making space with the Holy Spirit, Jesus, for us to really, really be transparent with Jesus and Holy Spirit about the things that are weighing us down. Really transparent. And that's one of the things the ladies talked about on their Course in Miracles and Racism forums, is transparency, even amongst themselves, about the uncomfortable things that were coming up for them that they would not have shared with each other had they not had that relationship in that form. In the same vein, going deeper, the relationship that we really want to go into with the Holy Spirit and Jesus about really being transparent. How many of us, even course students, are really transparent with the Holy Spirit and Jesus about the stuff that's weighing us down? The stuff that's making us feel really guilty and really shameful, that we've really felt burdened by. How many of us have been fully transparent with the Holy Spirit and Jesus with that? Just be honest, within. But that's where we have to go for us to really expose the grip that those guilty stories have over us. We have to go there. The road of discomfort of looking at our deep-seated guilt, covered over by those stories that we're afraid of looking into. The road of discomfort gets proportionally shorter to our willingness that we are to go through it with the Spirit. The road of discomfort of shedding the ego's grip over us get proportionally shorter the more willingness we have to continue down that discomfort with Holy Spirit. Then that discomfort shortens and shortens and shortens and shortens until our belief is so strengthened and so clarified and so reaffirmed that the chains start to disintegrate. But it's a stretch there that's going to be very uncomfortable by design, because that's how the ego set it up. That's how the ego stays in charge. That's how the ego's armor and prison stays fortified, by us running away from areas that we don't want to look at. And Jesus in the Course in Miracles is telling us it's a required course. It's a requirement for us to go right into that guilt, for us to be free. So I appreciate the brother who came tonight and the sharing and the openness. It was a wonderful time for us to again reaffirm why we're here, why we do relationship. The time-saving question: what is the relationship for? What is anything we're doing in this life? We got goals. What are the goals for? If we have ambitions, what is the ambition for? Are we seeking in this world, which is what the ego's gospel is? Seek and do not find. We seek approval, seek validation with all of our goals and relationships and ambitions. Do we want a pat on the back? Do we want people to look at us in a more superior light so we can stand out and feel special about ourselves, which is what the ego would say is a good thing? You should want to feel special, according to the ego. You should want to feel special. You should want to stand out. You should want to get attention from people and feel good about yourself and have self-esteem, according to the ego. That's the ego's gospel. You should want to feel special. Your partner should want to make you feel special, according to the ego's gospel. Well, look out at the world. I'm looking out at the world who practices that ego-based belief system of external approval seeking and seeking validation and fulfillment in the world where you cannot get it. And I don't see a lot of smiling faces out there. I don't see a lot of fulfillment out there in this world practicing that ego belief system. I don't see a lot of smiling, joyfully authentic brothers and sisters running around practicing that ego-based belief that says that my happiness is depending on my accomplishing my goals. My happiness is dependent upon me feeling fulfilled after accomplishing things in the world. My happiness is dependent upon people looking at me in a good light and seeing that I'm a good person and a good citizen who've accomplished all these wonderful things and treated people so well. That's where my happiness comes from having acceptance in the world, according to the ego's gospel. I don't see a lot of happy, joyful people running around practicing that, and we say we're free. And we say we love our freedom, but we're imprisoned by a belief system that has us desperate for seeking our happiness in a place where we will not get it, but we say we're free. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't have to believe, agree, or accept anything I'm saying. 2, we're here to establish and set an intention of openness and transparency for any brother and sister that's willing to, that's led to open up and share any guilty, shameful burdens that may have been weighing us down. We want to save safe space for that. Not so much to force confessional. That's not the point. The point is to set the intention within. So when we leave group, we have a steady intention within to go to a safe place with the Holy Spirit to expose those ego hangups. 3, we want to be 100% unconditional in our application of what the Course is saying. And being 100% unconditional in its application is 100% asking for guidance in all things. Big and small decisions, long-term and short-term, every single decision or thing that crosses our mind, take it to the light of the Holy Spirit. Show me the way. Show me the way. Show me the way. Lead me. Guide me. Lead me. Guide me all day long. I go to sleep with that prayer in my mind. Lead me, guide me, Jesus, while I'm sleeping, because I don't want ego to infect my mind any further than it has for the last 50 years. So we need to be really adamant about what we want in terms of investing our effort either in the light of God, the whole, total, complete surrender to the peace of God, or do we want to keep our foot firmly planted in stuff and things of the world? Because we will not do both at the same time. We'll wobble, like we all do. Even as Course students, we wobble quite a bit. I wobble during the day, but we cannot do both at the same time. We either want what's real or we want what's false. One or the other. And the goal, what's the goal of this? As several loved ones have asked me, the goal is complete release from all attachments, all guilt, all shameful burdens, all expectations. Complete release in faith in this world. Complete release of faith in this world at all. And 100% faith in the light of God that we are. Complete faith in the light of God, the love of God. But to get to that place of completion in our faith and the completion in where we identify as spirit and not as an ego body, an ego physical body tied to the past, and believing that you're tied to a future that you have to keep repeating this past and repeating this guilt and this suffering and this pain because we think that's what we deserve for ourselves. Identifying purely and wholly with our spirit identity comes with a lot of mind training and a lot of clean out. And we can only do that with Holy Spirit Jesus walking us through every step of the way. Complete and total surrender to the light of the Holy Spirit Jesus to retrain our minds, which have been thoroughly intoxicated by the false beliefs in this world. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to get home and get to bed. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate you. I appreciate you deeply for the openness and the space. I love you. Have a beautiful evening and a beautiful weekend of practice. Be the light and feel the light that you are. Lead us, guide us, lead us, guide us, lead us, guide us. We deserve what we deserve. Have a beautiful evening.